Hi, I'm Victoria Yurkova, and today we have a pleasure to visit South Australian artist and art tutor Alan Louis Ramachandran at his beautiful Bali hut, which is used as his outside gallery. And we are going to have a nice chat about his art journey and about art in general. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Victoria.
How you started doing your art? Why did you start, and why do you keep doing it?
Art has always been a passion for me since I was young. Young meaning when I was in my, like 5 years old. I used to love to draw. And one thing is good, the parents always encouraged me to draw. And that started my art journey in that sense. So as I grew up, art was my favorite subject. So I used to paint in my house. I painted the walls, I painted murals, didn't object. That's why, you know, sometimes it's very important for the parents to support you. So didn't object, and I painted. I had a room, and I painted the whole wall. Something, you know. It was
So as a child?
Maybe in my teens, and I got no idea what medium. All I know is I saw something, and maybe it was one was a record cover, and what kind of paint, what kind of brushes, no idea. Just copied and painted on the wall, and you buy cheap paints, you know. And there was the love of art along the way. Then later on in profession, I became an interior designer. So that helped me to pursue this creativeness of painting and art. As an interior designer, you need to visualize. So I could say you have an empty room and you want to build something. I somehow could learn to visualize the cabinets of the interior. And that helped me actually in my later life to visualize say I want to capture a scene. I could just look at the scene, and somehow, because of the experience of you painting many years, you could see not just the scene, you could see the painting. Mm-hmm. It's not a finished painting, but you could feel that the composition and the colors are very subjective again. You know when you go outdoor and paint, and sometimes they'll say, why do you use this color? I said, I feel this color. That's why. So when you look at it, I feel, say it's a sunny day, and I just feel this color. So I'll use these colors to paint. The colors over there might be different, but it doesn't matter.
Alan, what's your favorite media? What materials you prefer to use?
Watercolor has always been. I've been fascinated by watercolor. Before I started learning to paint in watercolor, when I visited the exhibitions in Singapore, I will always go to a watercolor exhibition, strictly watercolor, and I always wondered how they painted that scene and what techniques they use, and I got no idea. So at the age of 45, I said, I want to learn to paint in watercolor. So I went to learn from some of the Singapore top artists and learning the medium. But in the meantime, what I did is I used to go out during the weekends, and I do a lot of plein air painting. And because I just love to paint and draw, the drawing was just an advantage of me knowing to draw. But do not be mistaken that drawing and painting is different.
Absolutely.
It's not that, you can draw so you can paint. Not really. You have to learn how to paint. So it was a very interesting so-called the journey of learning the medium. You know, watercolor can be so fresh, can be so transparent. But how to achieve that? And then when you see art demonstrations or videos of how people do it, and it looks so simple. But the simplicity is because they have gone through the difficult stages of learning to control the medium. And when you come to a point where it looks so easy, and you know that you have achieved another level, I just say another level of watercolor. In other mediums, you can just slap the paint down and and if you don't like this color, tomorrow just put on top of another color
Yeah.
again. Well, in watercolor, you have to do a bit more of a planning, a bit more discipline. So when I paint, I do a lot of sketches. I'll show you what I do. A lot of sketches, a lot of preparation. Then you can see that I do a lot of planning. So when I teach, I tell the students this philosophy. This amount of planning, this amount of mistakes. This amount of planning,
Yes.
this amount of mistakes.
Absolutely
There's
right.
no shortcut. So especially in watercolor, you can correct your mistakes. There's no such thing as, oh, it's a mistake you can't correct. There are many ways to overcome this mistake. But you need to understand the medium first. Once you understand the medium, you are able to correct your mistakes. And because every artist, when they're learning, they are just afraid that if I put the brush there and it's a wrong stroke, and what can I do, or I have to start again. And I said no. So you give them this thing, this fear, get this fear out of watercolor, saying, no, it's still possible, don't worry, don't worry. When you just tell people that, they feel a bit more relaxed.
And do you try another mediums like acrylics, oils, or whatever?
Yes. The latest one is I've done in acrylics. And so when I do my paintings in acrylic, because I've been painting watercolor, it's in your blood, so-called. The method which I paint my acrylics, it's more like a watercolor. It's the method, but I don't say make the acrylics thinner, put some medium, or make it look like watercolor. No, the method, the technique, a lot of wet on wet. So when I paint the background of, say, something, say landscape, so I'll paint the sky and I'll paint the hills and so I do all my so-called first washes. It's basically all wet on wet. I have a spray.
Yeah.
And then once I'm happy, and then I'll start building up. And recently I've been also going to learn to paint in oils. So I got the materials. Some people have given me the oils. So now time to try this approach in oils. What do I expect? No, just another medium, and if I can express myself in that medium, that's good. If I can't, it doesn't matter. But in any medium you paint, you still have to follow your basic rules like composition, tonal value, warm and cool, and color. They're all the same. They don't change. But the medium is just a so-called vehicle to express your thoughts, your ideas. Like, say I want to paint something, and I kind of visualize the techniques, the colors, what I'm going to do. So a lot of planning done in the head, no doubt, but some in the sketchbooks. But a lot of visualization, and that is one of the keys, that if you can visualize what you plan to do, it helps a lot.
Alan, what challenges did you face as an artist, and how did you cope with them?
We discussed about my medium, which is watercolor. The challenge is that how to paint a large watercolor, because off the shelf you buy a watercolor, maybe they are a full sheet size, which is not very big. But I said, what can you do to paint it larger? So I was trying to find a solution. Let's just say you painted a 2 meter long watercolor. Painting the scene in the width of 2 meters by 1.5 has its own challenges. But then in watercolor comes the framing. How are you going to frame it? The only way is using a plexiglass, like plastic. But then there's one way. I said, but it's also quite costly. I started thinking on painting on canvas. Canvas, you can get very large pieces. You apply, they call it the watercolor ground. You apply 2 or 3 coats. It doesn't behave like paper. It is a ground. So there's a bit of challenges there, but you can overcome the challenges because you know about the techniques as in the medium. And then after that, when you do your painting, which is say 1.8 meters, 2 meters, and you feel that you are able to overcome this one of the challenges is as in painting huge, large, 3 meters or whatever. The largest which I've done is about 1.8 meters by 1.2, and it was on canvas. After painting it, and you could see that it has a different effect. So after that, to seal the pigment, because the water evaporates and you seal the pigment, you use a spray. And then you just maybe put a frame, and it's it's much easier, cheaper in that sense.
Yeah.
When I started painting in canvases, and I became more comfortable, so I can show you something later on of that width, and that was actually a good piece, and I won the second prize in the Gulwa Rotary Art Exhibition, and the judges came to me and had a very nice talk about how it's done. That was good, and I remember painting one of something like that, large one, and I entered a competition which is the Pro Heart Landscape Art Prize. And that was a couple of years ago, and you entered, and I was a finalist. Then the problem is how to transport there.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to figure out.
It's at Broken Hill.
Broken Hill.
Yeah.
So it's an honor for me to be as a finalist, you know.
So nice.
Yeah, and but the problem is how to transport that. So I went to fix some racks on top and put it on the top of the car and bundle it up and this and that. It was just another experience.
And 500 kilometers with your painting on. It's so cool.
I won't tell you the other part of the journey. And I remember doing that painting. I was on a trip to Melbourne with my wife, coming back. And on the way, while I'm driving here, I guess it's an 8-hour drive, and I was telling you about my visualization. So I'm actually visualizing my painting. So when I came back in the evening, and I painted this. It was just like, the plan is all done. And I knew what to do. So I painted the big one, and that's how sometimes things happen. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you want to paint something, and something else happens. So you have to go with the flow. You don't let everything go to plan. Let the watercolor do its own magic, so-called.
Yes.
And then sometimes the magic is to your advantage.
Yeah, with watercolor it's always surprise how the paint will behave and how
Yes.
it will go with the flow.
Yes, so sometimes as you're putting the brush down and something else happens, and you have to just say, it's nice.
I like it.
Yes, yes. Don't say, oh no, I'll start again. Every painting I give 100%. It's not about the size, it's just every painting. There's no such thing as, it's okay, it's okay. No, it's not okay, it's not okay. You have to put every painting, and you must feel good about it. But it's not about pleasing others. You paint for yourself first.
Yes.
You paint for yourself.
First of all, yeah.
If you're happy with your painting, so you're proud to put it up in an exhibition or wherever, you're very proud of your painting. So it's important.
Do you have some support which helps you to keep doing your art and motivates you?
Support, meaning that different types. Types of support. One is financially, one is emotionally. Both are very important support in your journey. So in order to have some money, sometimes what do? Is I teach. So the word teaching is actually, to me, it's called sharing my knowledge. I always tell the students, I can share with you to my level. There are some questions you ask me which I might not be able to answer, because this is what I am. Sometimes they ask me to show some of the techniques from certain artists. I said, I can show you the techniques, but I cannot show you how to paint like him. If you're being very honest with a student, then you just give everything what you know. There's no holding back. Very important, you don't hold back your knowledge, because knowledge is what you learn from other people, and then you share back the knowledge to them. So teaching is one of my ways I support myself. I have classes in Port Adelaide, in South Road, Handorf, And I do workshops. This is again, sometimes I travel up to the Riverland for 2-3 days, and I mean, this financially is good. And because I've done a couple of places there, like Renmark, Wakery, and somebody has contacted me for this year. Somewhere in August, I'll be going up to further up Murray Bridge, which is a town called Keith. And word gets around that you are a good tutor, which is nice, because you're always sharing, you're always giving. There's no holding back, and as I said, so doing workshops, teaching, giving art demonstrations, and I put my works in a couple of galleries. So that's how I support myself, so-called. Yeah. And emotionally is you got your family to support you, very important. And then you have friends who also are important in the art scene to support each other. I have many friends, artist friends, who are well known in South Australia, and it's important because we are not in a competition, we are just in the same love of art. There are many artists who are very, very knowledgeable in the medium of watercolor, very knowledgeable, and I said, wow, you're very good, can you show me?
And they also keep studying, keep learning,
yes,
finding new ways. And
yeah, so when they do more, then they understand more. So these are the ways I basically support myself.
what are the sources of your inspiration?
Before I migrated to Australia, back in Singapore, we used to paint basically the street scenes. Yeah, in Singapore there's not much landscapes. Coming to Australia, you are exposed to nature, and that is another avenue or inspiration which I found that it's so wonderful, especially in Australia. There are many places to go. You know, it's like if you go to a place, Flinders Ranges, you got the mountainous range, you got the valleys, you got the creeks, you got the gum trees, which back in Singapore, we didn't paint. So I had to do another learning curve, how to paint a landscape. Knowing the medium, how to use the medium is one thing, but how to apply when you are painting a landscape. So what I did is I went to research all the Australian artists, because you are local. So you look up one of the most famous is Hans Hyson.
Yeah.
So you go to his house, you look at his work and research, and go to the gallery, and gives you a lot of inspiration. Just looking at nature recently and learning to see the colors in nature.
Colors are
absolutely
fantastic.
It's sometimes. So what I say is that when you're learning to paint, you can see colors, but the depth of the color, sometimes you can't see the depth of the color. So I give this example. I said 10 years ago I went to see Hans Hyson's painting in the gallery here. I could see the colors, I could see everything, the brush strokes, everything. Recently, maybe 2 years ago, I went to see his painting again. But what I could see now is I couldn't see 10 years ago. Because the more you paint, the more you understand. So I could see his shadows as in warm, cool, light. I could see more depth in his painting. So he's a great artist. So we all learn from them. The more you paint, you see more. And I said that is very important. And as in you as an artist, to see more and understand more. And the only way is to paint more. There's no way.
And to look with different eyes that normal people would do it.
Yes. So, but it's a level of observation.
Yes.
And as I said, there's only one way, is to paint more. That is why it's important to know the basics of any medium, warm, cool, light, mid-tone, dark, all the composition. It's just back to basics, no doubt. But you need to know that, then you can express yourself in your work, because your work is you. So when I teach a technique, but I don't teach a style.
Yeah.
The style is yours. So
Style, vision.
is yours.
Yes.
I help you, I guide you. We as the tutor, we guide you and encourage you how to enhance your work and what can be done. And sometimes the student asks me, how do you do this? And my answer most of the time is, why don't you try first? And then I'll let you know. I said, I know the answers, but I want you to try.
Try your own way.
Yeah, you just try first. If you make a mistake, doesn't matter. Because they are always afraid to make a mistake. They want to be perfect. But if you don't give yourself a chance to try, you will never move. You have to try yourself first. I'm here to guide you. And said, that is my method of teaching. I don't give the answer so straight away. You tried this, but didn't work. And then but I asked you, why didn't it work? Then when it doesn't work, and I said, I tell you why. And then they will learn more. I want them to learn, you know. And said, why aren't you showing me? I said, I can show you, but you're not going to learn. I'm here to teach you. Which one do you want? You want me to tell you the answer, or you want to learn? You just tell me. I can.
It's quite different.
Yeah. So.
Alan, what type of acknowledgement is most important for you as an artist?
The acknowledgement, the most important is being accepted by your peers, because you look up to many people who are great artists, and when they give you a nice comment, and you are very, honored. I have received comments from local artists here, and some interstate artists who have become my Facebook friends. And when I post, say, just a painting, I went to here, do some painting, and some of them just comment is, hey Alan, great painting. And these artists who give the comments are well-known artists. So that is one of the, acknowledgements and from the peers. But it's not only them. On TV, I have a slot of how to paint, and it's free. It's on channel 44. So if you just go to Watercolours by Alan Louis on channel 44, it's a free channel, and you might have a chance to see me painting and show you how I do it. So sometimes, as I said, people come and they say they see me. I said, where do you see me? I saw you on TV.
Oh.
I said, okay, that's nice.
So this means that these people try to maybe to watch your lessons and to follow your instructions, and
yeah. So
some kind of your students.
Yeah. So to me, it's very nice, and it doesn't mean that they must be an artist. Couple of months ago, I went to pump petrol, and this man on the bicycle, the elderly man, said, I know you. Are you that guy? On TV? I said, yeah. But you can see he's not an artist, but it didn't matter. It was very nice. We had a chat and stuff like that. So that's one of the nice things to be recognized, yes. Again, so the peers are always nice to be acknowledged, yeah. Okay.
That's a question that we normally ask all the artists we're talking with. It's how do you know when your artwork is finished? Do you have some secrets?
Secrets? No secrets. I share everything. Let's say when I do a painting in my studio, let's say in my studio, so I'll put up the painting there. Then I walk back to the end of the studio and I turn around. So the first impression I get, and I ask myself, is it a yes or a no? So the first impression is very important in any painting. It's because like when you go up in an art show, when you look at a painting, you only have a split second to just say, I like it or no. You don't try to find the bits and pieces which you can touch up or whatever. That is beside the point. But the first impression is very important, and then if you look at it, yep, I got the story behind it. I like the way the light is coming, and you know, art is they call it some use the term visual story. So you have a story there. This is a visual story. If you can capture that, means you have accomplished your painting. So once you look at it, then you might touch up some bits and pieces. So you'll be walking up and down, and once you feel that it's just minor touch-ups in there, and within some I might leave it the next day, but the chances are very slim. So when I do a painting, because of my preparation, which I might take half an hour, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, it didn't matter. But once all that preparation, as I was saying, is so important. So when I finish a painting, and my painting normally finishes within 2 hours, and I'll start to the end, and I try not to stop, and I won't stop for like say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow or whatever. No.
Even these big ones?
Yep.
Unbelievable.
So the large ones within 2 hours, maybe the larger ones 3 hours, but it's all within 1 day. The full sheets 2 hours is done, and so that the flow of the energy is very important. You're connected to the painting. If you stop and you keep it for the next day, you have lost this momentum. You have lost this energy. So as I said, because of the preparation, I know most of the answers, so that when I paint, I don't need to look at the photo. I don't need to look at my notes. It's all done. So I just keep on painting. So it is basically from your mind and through your soul to your hand, through the brush, and that's
finally to paper.
Yeah, and to paper. So it's just this flow. So I will not keep it for next week, because you will try to find mistakes. But when you correct your mistakes, you can correct just a bit. But in watercolor, you have lost the transparency, or it becomes overworked, you know, the term overworked.
Yeah.
So learning to just accept, say you're painting the clouds, and then you do this stroke. Not every stroke is the same, and sometimes you might make so-called a mistake, but only you know the mistake. So don't worry about it. It's just a minor one. So don't try and correct too many things. Just go with the flow, as I said.
Yeah.
And you sign it, and that's it done for the day. And the thing is about when you paint, can you paint 3 at a time? You know, since you're painting while it's waiting to dry, you paint the next one.
Some people do.
Yeah, I said, I've tried that, and my advice is don't. Because when you do the first one, and then say, okay, let's do the wash for the second one. And when you do the second one, but your mind is still on the first one. So you are not giving 100% to each painting. You are just toying here and there. And then when you are painting, you are just looking at 2 paintings. So it's not fair to the painting.
Yeah, you can't concentrate on one.
You cannot. So don't try to paint. You said we're not a production line. You are an artist. You paint one at a time, and you will put the 100% in every painting.
Yes.
So that's very important, you know. So that's how I know when I finish, and basically when I sign. Basically when I sign it.
Can you imagine that you're like a magician and you have no limitation? How, in this case, you would improve the artistic society?
When I migrated here, my title is Alan Louis Ramachandran, not artist. I'm just here, okay? But through the passion of painting and, winning helped me. It's nice, yeah? You get many awards for this and that. So you come to a point in time that I feel that I like to give back to the society. And how do I give back to the society? It's not about, it's not about me anymore. It's not about me. It's, they said, but you've done as much as you can. I said, yeah, as much as I can. And so how do I give back? And if I have no limitations, and my answer is, I will build an institute. But it's not about them to become an artist. The idea is that when you go to this institute, you can explore yourself, you can enjoy art, you can enjoy nature, you can enjoy different form of art, how to express yourself. You want to be maybe an engineer, but that doesn't mean you can't love art. Art is so wonderful. It has helped me a lot. So it's like giving back to society, and I want everybody to enjoy art, not just become an artist. It's not, as I said, it's not the main goal of the institute that you have graduation, you got 100 artists, you got 200. I said, no, it's nothing about that. You might graduate, but I don't expect you to become an artist. I just want you to really learn how the other artists see the world. The new students who come and they say, let's painting the clouds. And said, last time when you're driving, I don't see the clouds. But now when I'm driving, oh, this cloud and that cloud, or you see more than clouds. And maybe you see the trees, you see the landscape, you see the colors. I said, this is what art is all about. I've painted many scenes, local scenes. And I said, guess where? Can't guess. I said, it's just this street. Because they just, their mind is somewhere else. They are just going to work and coming back. But they can pass the same street and never notice that part of the street. And you have captured that part of the street because you see in your artist's eye an old building or some bushes, and can be a work of art. You never realize. So art can be everywhere and anywhere. So that's how I wish, if I could have no limitations, I would just share art around. We'll start here first.
Because everyone.
For everyone. The art is for everyone. It's not about me. You know, this thing about people nowadays are...
Yeah, people should know art, and people should live in this. It's not just like about artists, it's just about society in general. Thank you so much, Alan, for this interesting interview, for your interesting ideas, which you so generously share with us. And I think that this interview will be interesting for anyone, not for artists only. I hope you would enjoy it.
Yes, and thank you again very much to have this interview and to promote also the art and the local artists. It's very important what you're doing, and it's very not acknowledgeable. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay, done for the day. Time to have a beer.